Solving more linear inequalities. When we're solving inequalities, that means you have a greater than or less than symbol instead of an equal symbol. When you're solving these, your addition property holds just like it does in equations, and your multiplication property holds sometimes. If you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a positive number, the property holds. But if you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, you have to reverse the direction of the inequality symbol. Other than that, you approach it just the way you would an equation. So let's look at this inequality. Here we have parentheses. 5 times x plus 2 is less than 2x plus 5. We need to solve this. So first thing we need to do is get rid of the parentheses. So we'll distribute the 5. That'll give us 5x plus 2 is 5x plus 10, because the 5 times the 2 would give me 10. Make that look a little better there. Is less than 2x plus 3. Now because I have x on both sides of the equation, I want to get the x's on one side. I get the x's on one side by getting rid of my 2x. To get rid of the 2x, I subtract the 2x on both sides. So now I have 3x plus 10 is less than 3. Now I need to get rid of my 10. To get rid of my 10, I subtract the 10 on both sides. So I have 3x is less than negative 7. So I divide by 3. Now I'm dividing by a positive 3. So that means my inequality symbol will remain a less than symbol. This is the inequality form of that answer. In interval notation, x is less than negative 7/3 means on the number line you would be, here's 0, here's negative 7/3. You'll be looking at numbers smaller than negative 7/3. So you'd be looking at the left end of the number line. So that means our interval notation would begin with negative infinity, and it would go up to negative 7/3. It would not include the negative 7/3 because I don't have my equal mark here. If it included the negative 7/3, I would have the little equal mark there. Okay, let's look at another one. This one has fractions in it. If you got fractions in an equation, the first thing you do is you get rid of them. So that's going to be the first thing we do here. Our common denominator here is 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by 10. So that's going to give me 10 over 1 times negative 2x plus 1 over 5 on the first side of the equation. The reason I choose 10 is I want to make the denominators cancel away. So the 5 and the 10 would reduce to giving me a 2 in the numerator. So now I have 2 times the negative 2x plus 1. Now on the other side of the equation, I would have 8x plus 3 over 10 times 10 over 1. Well, there the 10's reduce away, so I have just 8x plus 3. Now I multiplied by a positive 10, so that means my inequality symbol is going to stay just like it is. Now this looks similar to what I just had. I'm going to distribute the 2. So that's negative 4x plus 2 is less than or equal to 8x plus 3. Now I need to get my x's on one side. When you're dealing with inequalities, it's typically best to keep your x on the left side of the equation. So I want to get rid of the 8x by subtracting 8x from both sides. Then I'll have a negative 12x plus 2 is less than or equal to 3. Now, I've got the x on one side, so I've got to get rid of that 2. So I'll subtract the 2 from both sides to get negative 12x is less than or equal to 1. Now, my last step is to divide by negative 12. So this time, I am dividing by a negative number. So because I divided by a negative 12, my inequality symbol has to reverse. Instead of being less than or equal to, I change it, and now it's greater than or equal to a negative 1/12. So the interval notation for that would start at negative 1/12, and it would go up to infinity. And this time I would include my endpoint because it does have the equal mark in the equation. Now this is a compound inequality because there's 3 parts to it. So when I'm solving these, I solve it by getting the x by itself in the middle. So that means I want to undo this 12 here. You want to get the x by itself in this middle portion. So I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. Oops, all 3 sides. So the 4 minus 12 is negative 8. Is greater than negative 2x is all that would be left in the middle. Is less than or equal to negative 18. So now to get the x by itself in the middle, I divide by negative 2. Since I divided by a negative, I'm going to reverse both of my inequality symbols. So negative 8 divided by negative 2 would be 4. So now it's 4 is less than x is less than or equal to 9. So this would begin at 4 and stop at 9, and it would include the 9, but not the 4. So we would include the 9, but not the 4. Would look something like that. Or if you did it with circles, you'd have an open circle at 4 and a closed circle at 9. Now this is a graphic inequality where we have the graph of 2 lines. Let's say my green line is my y1. So that's this graph right here. Let's say the brown line is my y2. That's this line. If I want to know where y1 is less than y2, I'm looking at my y values. So I want to know where the y values on the green line are less than the y values on the brown line. So in other words, where my green is lower because it's less than the brown line. So where the green is lower than the brown is all of this right in here. So that corresponds to all of the x values up to where the lines intersect, which happens at x equal 2. So x would be less than 2. I would not include the equal mark here because I don't have it here. So anywhere the green line is lower than the brown line is x, your x values are less than 2. Now let's look at the one we just solved by hand and look at solving that graphically. In order to do this graphically, I'm going to put my 12 Let me clear out what I've got here in my y equals screen. I go to my y equals screen and I want to type 12 minus 2x. And that's going to give me, when I go to my graph, let me do zoom 6 to get it on a standard window. That's going to give me my line. I want to know where this line has y values that are less than 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right here, and greater than negative 6. So negative 6 is down here. So in my y equals, I want y2 to be 4 and y3 to be -6. And I see the portion of that graph that corresponds between those two is this portion right here. So that is an x value of, what is this, 4? From x values of 4 up to an x value of, what's this one? I believe that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I can get the same answer graphically that I did numerically, symbolically.